In the premium section earlier this week, Grayson Grunhafer put up a list of those who are attending the game this weekend, Brigham Young and Baylor. And there are about, 8 to 10 players who have already committed, 3 or 4 prospects for the class of 2022, about 8 or 10 for 23, a couple for 2024, and even maybe some surprise visitors. Grayson, how big a weekend will this be for Baylor?
Yeah, I think this is the biggest one that we've seen up to this point in the season. Obviously, Iowa State, there were a lot of really good visitors there. That definitely was a big game. One of those kind of statement kind of performances that Baylor put in front of a lot of prospective recruits, and that was a big deal. And I think this one might even be more important. I think that there are some big-time prospects on the list this weekend in the 2023 class, 2022 as well. That's been obviously a focus. They have a few spots left there, especially after Zach Pyron decommitted a couple months ago. But yeah, so I think this is one of those weekends where you want to show the recruits, this is homecoming weekend. This is Baylor. This is the football team. This is the product on the field. This is the environment. Like, homecoming should be one of the best environments on the football schedule this year, outside of maybe Oklahoma or the Texas game. But it should be right up there. So I think the staff is counting on that and hoping that, they can put together a win this weekend in front of some really, really good recruits, some highly ranked ones, honestly.
Grayson, a couple of things. Who are the quarterback targets to replace Zach Pyron? And why is it, especially when you see what's going on in Oklahoma, why is it important for teams to pretty much now always have to have a quarterback in the recruiting class because of the transfer portal?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I actually would tell you, based on everything I've been seeing and following for Baylor quarterback recruiting, I actually think their 2022 quarterback offer or scholarship offer is actually a guy that's already on the roster. And that's kind of been my belief for a while now, and that's C.J. Rogers, the walk-on from Argyle. They really liked him when they took him as a preferred walk-on, and the hope was that he would turn into a scholarship player. And I think if Baylor found a 2022 prospect they absolutely love, such as Zach Pyron, then they would take him. But if they don't, I don't think they're just going to take a quarterback to take a quarterback. And so I think that's where they're at right now. No offers have gone out. I haven't even heard really any interest on quarterbacks in the 2022 class, which leads me to believe that most likely situation is that C.J. Rogers gets a scholarship, and then they for sure 100% take a quarterback in the 2023 class, which they've already put out 3 offers in the 2023 class. So they're getting off to a nice start. All of those recruits are probably going to visit this season. Dripping Springs quarterback Austin Novosad, he's already visited. And I know Denton Guyer quarterback Jackson Arnold will be visiting for the Oklahoma game. So, a lot of optimism for 2023. But I think right now their focus really was all on Zach Pyron. And he committed to Georgia Tech, of course, a couple weeks ago. And it just seems like they're trending in the direction of not taking a quarterback in a class, which, like you said, is kind of unconventional these days.
So no quarterback likely in this class. You mentioned some of the guys visiting. What is the focus then for 2022 in your mind?
Yeah, so I think I can basically narrow one name down that has just absolutely been a focus ever since he was offered, and that's Colleen Shoemaker, defensive back Kamari Terrell. It wouldn't really be fair to call him a defensive back because he literally does everything for them. He's a great return man. He's got great speed, a heck of an athlete. So it's very clear that Kamari Terrell is an absolute priority in this class. I think outside of him, I think it's really about trying to find a best available type. If you can find an elite prospect somewhere out there, if you can go, maybe switch a guy or flip a guy and try to get a commit like that. Maybe on the defensive line, maybe at wide receiver. I know they're loaded on the offensive line, but I wouldn't rule that out either. So I think it's more best available type. And then I think the third spot. So my belief is they have 2 to 3 spots. I think it'll probably be a defensive back and then a best available type and then probably a defensive lineman. I think that's an area they've really wanted to add there ever since official visits. It just hasn't really worked out quite yet. But a guy like Calvin Dinkins out of Mississippi, he took an official visit to Baylor. He's an interesting one. Devontae Tizino out of Clean Ellison is another name to keep an eye on. So, yeah, I would say probably, defensive back, defensive line, and then maybe a best available to round out the class.
How much did the Amari Evans commitment to Penn State, which, again, is a very big-time blue blood type of program, how much did that sting?
Not a lot, to be honest. And it's not really about, it's just such a tough situation because Amari Evans is a really, really good player. But the issue is he's probably a wide receiver, and Baylor really needs defensive backs more so than wide receivers in this class at this moment. So I would say that it was one where they obviously liked Amari. He came on a visit. He visited Baylor. He had talked about possibly taking an official visit to Baylor, and just none of that really came together, which leads me to believe that, he really liked Penn State. I mean, he went to their whiteout game. It's hard to beat an environment like that. So that's point number one. And point number two is I just don't know that Baylor felt like they had to land Amari Evans in this class. And I don't think Amari was saying, I have to be a Baylor Bear. So I think it was kind of one of those things. And sometimes that happens. But I can tell you that his teammate is one this Baylor staff really, really wants. I mean, Kamari Terrell, he checks all the boxes as far as a long, lengthy cornerback with elite speed, especially in track, and just a guy that I think his speed really translates to the football field.
You and the Bearcats with Craig Smoak every Tuesday, launched into the premium section, of course, an hour plus. Have you guys ever gone less than an hour?
No. I think we, Craig, I don't know about you, but I think I can probably remember, when we had to record at the old studio in the rain when we were basically talking about tennis for an hour. That was, we probably had a couple 45-minute ones.
Yeah, it's maybe in one or two. That's it. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, and there's no time limit. Hour 14, hour 3.
I try to keep it somewhat realistic. I mean, otherwise we'd just be sitting there all day long. But yeah, it's at least an hour every week
because you guys have so much there. Before. Yeah, and again, it's because of all the information can go in different ways. You had the C.J. Rogers thing, did you not? Like many weeks ago. That, in fact, I think I even mentioned C.J. Rogers as somebody that. Don't forget about him as being a part of that quarterback room.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of reiterated that. And even when he came in as a preferred walk-on, we tried to tell everyone he's not a normal preferred walk-on. As in, he should have probably gone to a Power 5 school. It just didn't work out with COVID and among other things. I mean, it was like his, I think, first or second year actually playing the quarterback position. So still a high ceiling there for a guy like that. And so, yeah, I mean, don't forget about him. And honestly, I don't think Baylor would be too upset if he is their 2022 quote-unquote quarterback for the class, because I think he's a very good player. And also, they've gotten to see him on campus, which is such an advantage. When you go get a recruit, a lot of times you have to get lucky and hope that they actually show up and they're actually really good on a college football field, whereas with DJ, you kind of know that already because you get to see him in practice every day.
Yeah, and he hasn't played that position very long. He's kind of one of those diamonds in the rough. I've seen some videos. His dad has sent me some stuff of his workouts during the summer. He might just be one. You never know. There's always stories like that happen. A guy that's a so-called walk-on that just forces his way up the ladder.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Baylor actually expected that from him. When they took him, I don't think the expectation was, you're just going to be a walk-on for 4 years. I think it was like, we want you to come in because we think you could be our quarterback eventually. So he's that kind of walk-on. He's that kind of, you hope he turns into a Baker Mayfield. There aren't that many of them. But if CJ is one of those guys, Baylor's going to be awfully happy.
So, Grayson, real quick, your thoughts on the game tomorrow against BYU, a top 25 opponent. Baylor has a chance to get bowl eligible and head into the bye week at 6-1. But BYU's a good team, no doubt about it. Your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, guys, I mean, they finally don't have to play a top 15 run defense like they've had to play in the last 3 weeks. It's been an absolute gauntlet for them going and playing, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. So now you face the BYU team who I think they're a little more susceptible in the run game as well as the pass game. So I think they can be attacked very similarly to West Virginia. So I expect the offense to put up some points. But one thing I will say is BYU is very well coached, and I think that gives them the ability to stay in this game, even though I do think Baylor is a much better football team this year. I just think BYU will play disciplined football, be able to run the ball, try to control time of possession, try to force some turnovers. But overall, I think Baylor's just the better team. I expect the Bears to win by maybe double digits. 10, 11 points would kind of be my thought process on this game. But I expect BYU to make this a 4-quarter game. I don't think it'll be like last weekend.
Thank you very much, Grayson. Appreciate your time covering up all who will be in town, those who might be in town, surprise visitors, etc. And thanks for your time on Sickland Precinct.